I am Irish. I grew up in a small town in the southeast of Ireland, and I studied German and history at Trinity College Dublin. And I think it was really seeing the pretty profound economic and social change that was unfolding in Ireland in my late teens and early university years that really instilled a sense of curiosity around how you drive change from an early stage of my studies and careers. And ultimately, that curiosity around how you drive change is what I have addressed in one way or another over the course of my career. In particular, Ireland was going through a period of growth, largely driven by foreign direct investment. And in particular, I was interested from quite an early age in the role that business played in economic and social change. And it was during my time at the World Bank that I had the opportunity to spend some time in Ethiopia. I was researching from my Paris base, the role that innovation plays in change, when I realized that I'd actually never been to a developing country, and so it was important to me to really understand the dynamics, in the countries I was writing about. And so fast forward, I found myself in Ethiopia, and it was really, a fantastic experience, and for me, a very pivotal moment, both personally and professionally, in my career. And what I saw was that it was business that was driving change. So my decision to study for an MBA was really driven by what I had seen during my time in Ethiopia with the World Bank. And what that time had shown me was that there was an alternative model to drive economic and social change, and that business was at the core of that. And I decided that I wanted to transition from public to private sector to play a role in shaping, well, to shape really the role that business could play in society. The other driver, however, was to equip myself with finance skills. So I've always really been a believer that finance can play a very significant role in influencing and driving change, right? And so I wanted to equip myself with kind of basic finance skills for whatever I did afterwards. And I guess I didn't know what I wanted to do exactly, right? So private sector is obviously vast. And so I needed time to figure out, to educate myself on what were the different options open to me. And so an MBA and London Business School specifically is a great platform to not just to equip myself with the skills that I needed to make the career change, but equally the platform to really explore the different options available to me, to test some of those through internships and consulting engagements, etc. And so that was really why I decided to do an MBA. And then last but not least, the cultural fit with the school for me was really important. And what I mean by that is that, what happened inside the classroom was really important, but equally what happened outside of the classroom was as important to me, because that's really where you forge, friendships, where you learn actually also about, the fantastic diversity of backgrounds that people come from. And LBS has a really rich student, student clubs scene. And so, with a great diversity of clubs, from professional to sports, to arts, to cultural, and these are great ways to, as I say, inform yourself about different options, get to know your fellow students, And so I really took advantage and wanted to take advantage of that side of the offering. And, so I got stuck into, the Africa Club. I'd always wanted to learn to sail, so I joined the sailing club, and also spent a lot of time at the Social Impact Club. So that was very much as much part of my education and my experience as what happened in corporate finance in the classroom. I had joined the sailing club to learn how to sail, and little did I realize that I would actually learn to sail live during a regatta. So, and what was extraordinary was that of the 7 crew on the boat for this regatta, 6 of us had never sailed before, and 1 other had sailed the dinghy. And then there was the skipper, an incredibly calm, experienced Irish skipper who literally, through his clear, instruction as we raced, taught us to sail. And I think the other thing that was extraordinary was, I guess, just the ability of the crew to listen and work together. And it all came together so well that we actually nearly won the race, which was just extraordinary. And so I bring it up because not only was it a really fantastic, fun experience, albeit very cold. It was November in the Solent. It also taught me a lot about management, right? Because management is ultimately about one's ability to remain calm in the face of, whatever challenge you face, and your ability to communicate clearly, and as well as your ability to listen. And I think that race always stuck with me as being, the result of what you can achieve if you can bring all of those skills together. I think the most important skills that I took away from LBS was the ability to navigate complexity and uncertainty, and to do so with confidence. And that, that's a skill set that I think we need in our personal lives, in our professional lives, and particularly as the world becomes more complex every day, right? So that was really a huge asset for me personally. And secondly, the platform. So, I mentioned the student clubs. There was LBS provided, and regularly organized, networking sessions, across all the different sectors of interest. There was really the possibility to learn about so many different areas. I'll never forget during my summer internship, and I'll talk about that in a moment, how I got there. But I was trying to do a financial model and value an insurance company, and valuing insurance companies was a bit more complex than maybe what we'd done in class. And so I just put a note on Portal. I'm looking I'd love to speak to somebody who can help me value an insurance company. And I had multiple replies, right? And from busy investment bankers who were prepared to walk me through, how you model a valuation of an insurance company. And that for me said a lot. And that's the incredible platform that LBS offered, and that platform continues today. Careers are not linear, and as much as one often, usually at the beginning of an MBA, sets out with a very clear goal and a plan to get there, often, the path to get there turns out to be very different, right? And you've got to be able to kind of roll with what life presents you. What I learned is that if you're able to do that, you're also opening up yourself to, potentially even more rewarding experiences along the way. So the internship that I ended up pursuing in 2007 was with Mo Ibrahim's private equity fund, Satya Capital. And it was a really fantastic experience. one which, taught me, introduced me to the whole world of private equity. It was an area I didn't know before, and one that I became quite fascinated with, and the role of investment, right, in driving change. But also it gave me the opportunity to work with an incredible group of businessmen and women, Mo Ibrahim included. So the team at Satya Capital were the former management team of Celtel, the telco which they had together established in Africa. And working with the team gave me really a unique insight into how business can drive change, and that if you're prepared to see opportunity where others see risks, then you can build a really incredible business, and secondly drive impact as you go. So what I've learned is that what's most important is to be clear about what is it that you want to do, and why, and being clear about your purpose, the type of people you want to work with, etc. And then embracing what comes. And for me, I think what has been the common denominator across everything I've done is my curiosity, and I would dare say even purpose, in what is it that drives economic and social development. And that has also been, the narrative which has helped me to navigate the many career changes that I've made across different sectors and different roles. So I like to stay connected with LBS and its community, and do so really in a number of ways. So firstly, just through the friends. So I made a number of lifelong friends during my MBA, and we stay in touch, still today. So I also interview prospective students, and I find that a really fascinating way to follow the school, and also just to see how the MBA and the student body is evolving, and last but certainly not least is through the Wheeler Institute, which didn't exist when I was at school, and it's really fantastic to see its establishment a few years ago, because I think what this has done is it really has put impact and the role that business can play in society at the heart of the school. The world that we live in today is so complex that we ultimately need an impact mindset embedded in every career and in everything we do, right? If you look at the growth in ESG, economic, social governance, investing, and its principles, you'll see that ESG is transforming how capital is allocated, how businesses are run, how analysts are rating companies, and all of this translates into an increasing need for all stakeholders in any given value chain to be thinking about impact. So if I was graduating today, the question I would be asking is, how can I take ESG principles and how can I embed those in a given sector or in a given company, and how do I take those principles and use them not to mitigate risks, but rather to develop and implement sustainable growth strategies for my company or organization. So in terms of the role that business plays in society and also in developing countries, I think it's multifold, right? And I think the events of the last year and the COVID-19 pandemic have shown us just how inextricably linked business is to our experience as people, and not just as consumers or as employees. I think the extent to which a business can play a role or chooses to play a role in society is probably linked to whether to their ambitions to pursue short-term gain or longer-term sustainability. And this is even more so the case in developing or emerging markets. And you know, I think in emerging markets in particular, the role that companies can play is very much linked to how they see unmet social needs, right? So do they see these unmet social needs as constraints on their business, or do they see them as opportunities to grow their market, and ultimately in how they go about addressing these needs and building their business actually impact people's lives? In the role that I'm currently working in at the Global Fund, so I'm developing partnerships with the corporate sector to support our mission, which is to end TB, AIDS, and malaria by 2030. And I have the privilege of working with quite a diverse set of companies who get the bigger picture, right? And so as one example, MasterCard. You know, MasterCard is, most people think of MasterCard as a credit card company. MasterCard's a tech company ultimately, and it realizes that to grow its business in a sustainable way and into new markets, it needs to do things differently. And ultimately, it's leveraging its rails to look at how it can offer access to millions of individuals in low and middle income countries, and to offer them access to critical services like health and education and agriculture. So they very much get that their customer of tomorrow is that individual who may fall into the lower income bracket of today. But in terms of how they're going to actually engage that future consumer, they need to do it around the areas of their life that matter to them: paying school fees, giving them access to health records, whatever it is. Unilever likewise has, you know, put impact at the core of its business for a number of years, and, you know, is doing really interesting things. And then on the investment side, Leapfrog Investments, you know, they have proven fund after fund that you can absolutely combine financial returns with social impact. So I think, first of all, you know, I guess the term developing or emerging market is exactly what it says on the label, right? These economies are emerging, right? Which means their infrastructure looks different. You know, their consumer needs are different, and, you know, ultimately, I would say the aspirations also of the customers are different, which for me personally makes emerging markets much more exciting to work in than developed markets. And, you know, all of this presents, you know, so much untapped potential, and so, you know, there's so many unmet economic and social needs that therein lie many commercial opportunities, if you look at it like that, if you're prepared to look at it like that. But to really unlock these opportunities, I think you've got to forge a real relationship with the end consumer, right? And I think branding is even more important in emerging markets potentially than in developed markets. But brands aren't built overnight, right? We know that, and ultimately, brand loyalty is built out of forging an emotional connection with your target customer, and the greatest way to forge an emotional connection and lasting brand loyalty with the customer is to demonstrate that you actually want to impact their lives and make their lives better. And so if we go back to the example of CellTel, that's what CellTel did really well. They developed an exceptionally strong brand with a loyal customer base. And it's the reason why when Mo Ibrahim and his team sold the company in 2005, they sold it for $3.4 billion. And even more importantly, they did so having transformed mobile connectivity or communications connectivity in Africa, and bringing connectivity to 24 million people on the continent. So I think the Wheeler Institute plays a really important role in leadership development today. The world we live in ultimately demands that there's an impact mindset embedded in everything that we do, and so I think the Institute has an important role to play in thus embedding that mindset of impact into MBAs and other executive programs. So it's not to have standalone impact modules, but rather really to embed that in a cross-cutting way into everything from finance to marketing to strategy to operations management. The other important role that I think the Institute can play is to showcase what impact careers can look like, as well as to showcase examples of businesses that are creating and driving impact. I do think we need to mainstream impact careers, and so the more examples that students and alumni can see of how actually you can have impact outside of working in an NGO or development agency or a social enterprise, the more that will start to happen. And last but not least, I think there's an extremely important convening role that the Institute can play, and notably to bring together the brightest minds in academia and business, and from the corporate sector to solve unmet social needs today. We need to somehow elevate the importance of the private sector playing a role in global health, both in the funding and the financing of global health, but equally in terms of how we improve access to healthcare, how we prepare better for pandemics. And as one example, how do we, for example, tap into ESG investment flows to come up with new market-based instruments which can raise funding for global health and funding the different priority areas. And I'm happy to say that that's something that we at the Global Fund are working with the Wheeler Institute on. And I think it's just one example of how the school and the Institute can play that convening role to solve some of the hard problems that need to be solved, and which need to be solved with the private sector as at the table. I think the older I get, the more I realize that balance is really important to me, because ultimately I think if we have balance in our lives, then we can actually be more impactful. And so in addition to spending my time working on with people and on issues that are aligned with my purpose, right? And I define that as driving change through new and innovative business models to address unmet social needs. In addition to spending my time on that, it's equally important that I have time to spend on the things that refuel me, and spend time with family and friends, and on things that bring me joy in life. So food, exploring new wineries, traveling, and sailing when I can. I still try to do that. So my goal is always to try to have impact in whatever it is I'm doing, but also to inspire others to consider how they can drive change, and inspire them to take the journey of driving change, whatever field they're in. Africa will always have a very special place in my heart, and I think that whatever I do in the future, there's likely to be a link to Africa. I think it's just a continent with so much potential. I mean, it's got the youngest population on this planet, which is, increasing every day. And there's just so much energy that makes it a fun place to work and to work with. Equally, however, Ireland is my home. I haven't spent time there for a very long time, so I would like to find a way to spend more time there. So I'm very much open to what next looks like. I don't have anything specific in mind, other than I want to be having impact. I do think that there's a good chance it will be something related to healthcare, because I think what the COVID pandemic has shown us all too clearly, unfortunately, is just the huge inequities that we still have in healthcare, and I think there's so many unmet needs in the healthcare space. And ultimately, at the end of the day, health is our wealth, and it's the foundation of both our prosperity. So I feel very passionate about trying to chip away at changing that in whatever small way I can.